So we're going to start the session. Just want to welcome everybody to today's workshop. Please feel welcome to keep your camera on or off as you feel more comfortable with. But we appreciate your active participation in whatever way feels comfortable for you. Don't forget to add each other in LinkedIn and connect with our facilitator as well. Just put the information in the chat. As well with us, Katerina Amsapari, that is in the room, as well myself, Julia Ramirez, the program manager with Thrive. Before we start, let's start acknowledging the land. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the Thrive Network is located in the Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq, and we acknowledge them as past, present, and future caretakers of this land. Thrive Network recognizes and honors the many nations of indigenous people who presently live on this land, those who have spent time here, and the ancestors who have hunted and gathered across this land known as Turtle Island, Canada. Before we move with the presentation, I want to tell you a little about Thrive. Thrive is a network is a leading technology entrepreneurship and hub for racialized communities. We are a community of Black, Indigenous, and people of color pursuing entrepreneurship and innovation in Canada. We provide our members with access to relevant resources so they create wealth and make the world a better place. About specifically the Black Art Star Project is a unique program providing Black entrepreneurs and business owners in Atlantic Canada with access to service and opportunities in the entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystem to help start, build, and accelerate their business. Our programs deliver education and workshops tailored to Black entrepreneurs like the one that we're hosting tonight. As well, I want to share our values as an organization. We are leading with love. We nurture community. We believe in inclusive leadership, and as well with practice creativity. For that, we want to give you the best experience possible. To do that, everyone needs to treat each other with respect, so be mindful of each other's experience. As well, we will be recording the session, and as you may have received the notification as soon as you join, so be aware of that as well. So with that, I'm going to introduce your facilitator. We have Dan O'Shodin. Dan is funding an investor strategy manager with Volta, the Atlantic Canada's leading startup hub. In his role at Volta, he's responsible for building and cultivating relationships with Volta's funding partners and investors network. And insurance funders leverage all funding opportunities, dilutive and not dilutive, which we will go over today. He also coordinates the Volta investment readiness programs, which allow high-potential tech startups to access capital, resources, and partnerships for growth. He's a startup funder, an impact investor, and an alumnus of the Master of Technology Entrepreneurship and Innovation program of Sobeys School of Business at St. Mary's University. With that, I am passing the floor to Dan. And if you want to share with the slides, just feel free.
Thank you very much, Julia, and I'm very excited to be with you guys this evening. My name is Dan O'Shodin, and like she's mentioned, I work with Volta. So my role at Volta is around funding and fundraising. So can I share my screen now? So
yeah, please do.
You have to take yours off first. Okay.
Yeah, there it goes.
As I was saying, my role at Volta is around funding and fundraising. So what I do, on a day-to-day basis is helping and supporting startups, founders, and Volta residents to raise capital, both non-dilutive and dilutive capital. That means supporting them to access grants, subsidies, and all other types of non-dilutive funding. Also, if they are eligible or they are ready, also work with them to prepare for equity finance raising and going the whole hog of raising capital from VCs. So today we're going to be talking about how to raise capital for your small business or your startup. I don't really know the composition of the audience today. Are there founders here who say they are running a startup? If you are a founder running a startup that is building something in the technology space, can you simplify by kind of raising your palm or your hands and just let me know? I was asking if you can go into the chat room, the chat box, and let me know if you are a startup founder or you are a small business owner. Because there's definitely difference between those two. So we can quickly do that. Who is a startup founder and who is a small business owner amongst us here? So, we'll be talking about the different ways to raise capital for business. We'll be trying to distinguish between non-dilutive and dilutive capital, which is, grants and equity capital. We'll also be trying to understand which we should choose between debt and equity. And then once we're done with that, we'll go through the process of raising equity finance for a business, for startups mostly, because it's startups that access equity finance. So I haven't decided that we have a mix of both here. I just wanted us to understand the difference between a small business and a startup, because there's been this confusion over time. A lot of people tend to equate small business with startup. It's been used interchangeably, but they are different. And a small business is different from a startup. And that's because you can tell that they're different, across 5 different, parameters. First is the growth intent of the 2 types of business. They differ. A small business is one that they try to follow established order, and they're not really driven by fast growth. But a startup is based on a model of growing very fast, scaling very fast, and taking risk. But the small business is based on just trying to be stable, follow a route of stability. The business model is also different between these two types of businesses. The business model of a small business is to play within established market, using established processes and tools that have been tested over time. But a startup tries to disrupt the system, tries to disrupt markets, and tries to create new markets. So that's essentially the difference when it comes to business model across the two. So in terms of innovation, a small business is rarely really innovative. What they do is to kind of continue to improve on existing systems and processes, while a startup creates new processes, introduces new technologies that kind of changes the way things have been done over time. This risk tolerance level of these 2 types of business is also different. A small business is risk averse. They don't take as much risk as a startup. A startup can take the risk, especially risk of inviting external sources to put capital in the business. That's a risk. Taking venture debt sometimes, that's also a risk. So the risk level for these 2 types of founders are different. And then when it comes to funding, a small business would rely mostly on non-dilutive capital, while a startup would really invite external capital that involves giving up ownership and control of your business. So these are the two, those are actually the differences. Now, moving on, there are several ways to raise capital for a business because we have a mix of both today, both small businesses and startups. We are going to probably just merge both in finding approaches or discovering approaches to raising capital or financing for the business. So for both, there are several ways to fund the business. You can bootstrap, you can raise capital from friends and family. You could, but a few of them would be peculiar to startup. So I think we should just go straight into understanding the difference between non-dilutive and dilutive capital. That's grants and subsidies and equity financing. Non-dilutive capital is that source of capital that requires a company to give up its shares, to external investors. Non-dilutive capital refers to source of capital that you don't have to give up anything to get money. So it includes bootstrapping, grants, and loans. So you don't need to give up any equity. And sometimes you don't even need to pay back. It's free. But equity financing or dilutive capital is when a company has to give up shares to outside investors, to outside sources of capital, who take up ownership and control of the business, part control of the business, and that's called equity. In exchange for funds that are now poured into the business for growth, for development, for operational work, and this funding normally comes from a set of people called investors. They could either come in form of angel investors or venture capitalists. We'll talk about all of these types of investors later, so we get to know how they operate. Now, going to talk about non-dilutive capital or non-dilutive funding. We mentioned that there are several types of this. The first is bootstrapping. Bootstrapping basically is about funding your business yourself, either from your personal savings or from your own sweat. You have talent, you have experience and expertise in the business or in the project, and so you pour all of that into it because there's a cost to talent. You can take debt like credit card debts, and then if that works out fine, you could go ahead to continue to fund the business when you are selling and you're getting revenue. So you pour the revenue, the sales proceed back into the business. So the advantage of this is that it allows you to focus on the business without answering to external sources of capital that will require you to do regular reporting, meetings and all of that. So it also allows you to take full control and ownership of your business. So you have full control in terms of the decision-making process and all of that. And then when it comes to proceeds and ROIs and payback from this business, you own it all. So those are the advantages. But the disadvantages of bootstrapping is that sometimes you're taking a lot of personal risk because you're putting your savings. Imagine you resigning your job, you are not going to get salaries anymore. You take money from your family, and then that could lead to relationship challenges. If you don't pay back, so there are personal risks to bootstrapping. So it also slows growth because the main reason why you need capital for your business is to pump finance into the business so it can grow. So bootstrapping is a very slow way to grow the business because there's so much you can get from yourself and from your family. It's limited to certain type of business. You definitely cannot apply bootstrapping to high growth, scalable technology platform businesses. So there you have it. And then the second source of capital for a small business as well as a startup is to raise money from friends and family. And it's just simple, you can, sorry, there's an error there, the description of it. This is raising money from friends and family. You could approach your friends, acquaintances, colleagues, and if you have a great idea, they listen to you and they see an opportunity in it, and they can invest either in return uh, for dividends in the future, or they just want to help you and give you the money as a loan that you can pay back. So the advantage of this type of funding is that it's easy to access because you don't have to go writing loan applications and providing collaterals. It's also, you know, it doesn't cost much. You don't have to pay too much interest, hopefully, for it. And then you have flexible time. You can have family members to say, take this loan or take this fund, pay me back when you do make profit, or pay me back when you have time. I mean, when you have enough money to pay back. So the disadvantage for this is for this type of fund is that like I said earlier, it poses a risk to your relationships. You borrow money from a friend or from a brother or a sister or from a colleague at in a place you worked. And then if you can't return or can't stick to the terms, it can ruin relationships. Also, it's also limited because there's so much you can get from friends in terms of the amount. Uh, if you are putting money from your family or from yourself, maybe you're a man, you have a wife, you have kids, you need to take care of them, along with building this business, you are probably putting your family at risk when you try to move the money for the family to business. So that's what this means. So those are the disadvantages. And of course, I've talked about the advantages of raising money from friends and family. And then you have for startups, mostly this applies to startups. Uh, you can raise capital by participating in business pitches and business and pitches and competitions that are organized by accelerators and business incubators and some other entrepreneurial ecosystem platforms. So these prizes are mostly in cash. They could also be in form of advice and gifts in kind, like pitch competitions, business plan challenges, and fellowship like the IDEA Fellowship from Tribe, which uh, involved funding great opportunities for raising capital. And of course, you have grants. Katharina will be talking more deeply about grants in the next uh, in the series of these workshops. So grants basically are funding that you can get or access from companies, from foundations, from the government mostly, and from non-governmental organizations. So they come in form of non-repayable grants. It's free. You can use it to build your product, to do marketing, to do research, to hire new staff, to pay consultants, to train your employees. And you can also get grants for traveling, to go meet uh, partners, or to go to conferences and to go meet investors. So three types of grants really: some that you don't pay for, you don't repay; some that you have to repay; and there are some that you have to meet the funders halfway, where they could tell you uh, if you need 100K to do something, to build your platform or to hire an employee for over a period of 2 years, the government will meet you halfway, 50% up. They could meet you 75% of the way, while you have to contribute 25 or 50%. So this means you really have to have other sources of capital that you can use to leverage this kind of grants. So those are grants, and I'll leave that to Katrina to talk more about this one you meet next week or the week after. You also have hiring grants. These are grants that are designed to help employers recruit students, newcomers, and unemployed people so that they can build their businesses without really spending so much to hire people to build their team. To be eligible for most of these hiring subsidies, uh, in Nova Scotia, in Atlantic Canada, you have to be a registered business that's employing under 500 employees, because by the time you get to that number, you're probably a corporation that is really doing well. You have to offer full-time positions, whatever job or employment you're creating. It has to be full-time job that amounts to about 35 hours per week. So it's not for part-time or uh, kind of employment. And then you have to be able to pay some reasonable wages that, you know, that amounts to the kind of funding that you are trying to access. You also have innovation vouchers. I could give examples. I'll share links I'll share a database of different types of this funding that you can actually get to see how to apply to them. A hiring grant, for instance, is like the provincial uh, graduate to opportunity program that is offered by the province of Nova Scotia. You get to see that in the document I'll share, in the database I'll share later. Same with innovation vouchers, which are vouchers that are given by government to allow businesses and startups to contract uh, the services of consultants, mostly from universities or post-secondary institutes and research centers. So you can get expertise and talent from these organizations to help you prosecute your research and development. Uh, Sometimes you can also use it to pay wages, or just take consultants from the open market to do some work for you. Could be building your website, building your product, conducting some research. You could also take innovation vouchers to train your employees. Uh, Definitely not for travel. So innovation voucher, an example of innovation voucher is the Nova Scotia Provincial Productivity and Innovation Voucher, which is administered by Invest Nova Scotia. Again, you're going to find that in a database of funding opportunities I will share after this session. We have tax incentives, which are kind of issued by the government to businesses across different stages, small businesses as well as startups, and even big businesses. The only thing to note is, to be eligible for tax incentives and rebates, you have to have conducted research, and you have to have done innovation work that is disrupting the industry you are working with, you are working in. And you have to keep evidence and proof of these activities that are really innovative, for you to apply them when you are filing your tax. It's not really cash. What it means is that when you are filing your tax at the end of the fiscal year, you would deduct all of these expenses that amounted to expenses on innovation from your tax claims. And so you pay less tax, which is savings, for your business. So the good thing, the important thing to note is that you need to prepare ahead of filing to be able to access this kind of funding. You have to keep proper record of all the activities and the expenses that you have incurred, either from acquiring new technology or contracting consultants or external bodies to do this work for you. And then you have to hire an experienced tax consultant, because these claims are very technical, and you need a tax consultant that is experienced in this type of thing to help you. An example of tax rebate is the SHRED rebate that's called the Scientific Research and Technical, it's called SHRED really, and I also share a link to that in the document I'll share after this presentation. So how do you assess non-dilutive funding? How do you prepare to get it? I know Katrina will talk about this, but we could just run through this. You need to identify a project that you want to spend the fund on. For instance, is it for hiring staff? So you know you're going to be looking for, hiring a grant. Is it for product development? You could get a non-payable grant. Or is it for travel to across the border or to another province to go talk to new partners or to go discover new markets? So you could raise, you could try to access travel grants. Then you need to create a plan, like a business plan for that project, because most of these funding program that has to do with non-dilutive funding, they ask you to submit a plan of what you want to use this money for. For instance, if you're going to apply for the Graduate to Opportunity Program from the province of Nova Scotia, you have to not only state the details from the employee, prospective employee, you need to break down the details of the work the project is going to work on, the objectives of that product, the outcomes, the details of the different stages that this project will entail. And then you have to search for matching funding programs once you have identified the project you want to use funding for. So it goes across different categories like we've discussed before. And then you look through the website of these programs to understand the criteria for eligibility, to check if you really are eligible. You could say you have to have a product in the market already. Some will tell you you have to have started having revenue, or you don't need to have revenue, but you should have some users that demonstrate some traction. Thereafter, you can connect with program managers or coordinators in these funders, because you find them in all of these information they have on their website. And like I said, I'll give you a huge database where you can see links to these programs, as well as links to the application portal, as well as details of program managers. And then you can prepare the application when you're ready. Sometimes some are easy to just work on, but sometimes you need to work with specialist, expert grant writers. We have a number of them that we could connect you with. You could reach out to me if you have a grant you're trying to work on that you're finding it difficult to put together, and then I could connect you with a specialist in that field who could help you write the grant. And then you need to submit on time to be within the deadline, because most of these applications, they have deadlines. And then once you submit your application, you have a follow-up on the emails you have in those platforms. So basically, those are the steps you follow when you are trying to access non-dilutive funding. When you finally get this presentation, these are all links that can take you to the Canada Business Benefit Finder. It's a portal that you can fill information into about your business, the stage you are in, the project you want to work on, and then the province you're based out of. So once you submit, it drops down all types of funding that is available for your type of business, for your stage of business, and for your location. You also have a replica of that kind of tool in the website of Invest Nova Scotia. So you can get to all of this. And then, of course, Tribe Network shares opportunities every week. This is the one I've been talking about. The last one, the non-dilutive funding gallery that we have at Volta. It's an aggregation of funding opportunities across Canada that I'll share with you at the end of this session. So there are several ways to raise funding for your business. So we cannot talk about debt financing. I haven't talked about non-dilutive sources, because these non-dilutive sources, like I said, largely you don't have to repay them. But that's where the difference is with debt financing. So debt financing really means borrowing money from lenders or creditors, mostly banks, with the intention of paying back later. And it normally attracts interest over a period of time. It involves you signing a loan agreement. That's a contract to repay the funds according to the terms that you have in that contract or in that loan agreement, and according to the interest rates. Sometimes the interest accumulates and goes beyond the capital, and you could even have to pay fees, to the banks or to the lenders that are outside of the principal and the interest. There are different types of debt financing for a small business or a startup. You can get a loan from a bank. The two types of loan that I have worked with teams, out of Volta to assess. You have the Futurepreneur loan, which is underwritten by BDC. So that loan is for $20K, $20,000, and you can assess that loan if you are a young entrepreneur that is age 18 to 39. And then you also have the BDC Small Business Finance Loan, small business financing, which is directly from BDC. So you get to see a link to that in the gallery I'll share with you. You can get corporate bonds, but this is for businesses that are not necessarily small. They have to be startups that have actually started generating revenue. You can also get asset-based loans where you have to mortgage or use your assets, maybe equipment or even office space that you own as a collateral to raise capital from banks or lenders. You can also get line of credit. Line of credit is an extended credit that you get from mostly banks that you can pay off and then go back and take over time. You can do cash flow loans. Cash flow loans are, you go to a bank or a lender and you have to show them your cash flow. Cash flow is a statement of income and expenses of your business that shows a balance on a monthly or on a regular basis. So when you're able to prove that you have good balance every time or regular intervals, you have a lot of money flowing in just as they are flowing out. So a bank or a lender is confident to give you cash flow loans. So because they know you are able to pay back from your revenue. But the fact is, you have to kind of mortgage or use your invoices, your unpaid invoices as a collateral. That means if you get business or you sell to a client, you have to let the client know that you're taking loan from the bank. And you have to let the client know that the client will pay or the customer will pay that invoice to a particular bank, that bank being the bank that gave you this facility. So the bank kind of is on you to make sure that whatever inflow you are getting comes to their bank so they can access it directly to recoup their borrowing to you. The other one is vendor financing, where a vendor can actually, if your customer can actually finance your business, either by giving you credit or by asking you to produce your product or service, and giving you advance to do it so you can deliver. The last one is venture debt. This comes as a very late stage. It's actually have to be combined with equity capital. So when you're trying to raise capital from VCs and you need additional cash to build the business to reach certain milestones that can give confidence to VCs and VCs. So you would have to get this kind of loan to build the business to that level. a bank like RBCX, which is a subsidiary of the big RBC bank, gives this kind of venture debt. But it comes at very late stage, not for early stage startups. It comes at very late stage where you're already making money, you're already generating revenue, you already have a very large market, and your market has expanded beyond a region. So these are the different types of debt financing that you can bring into your business, or that you can access to build your business. Debt financing has some advantages because you are not taking it from VCs, which we get into shortly. You continue to maintain ownership of your bank, although you could run into challenges and then you have some collaterals that could be lost. But largely, you retain ownership of your business if you are using debt as a source of finance. You could also enjoy tax deductibility, on interest payments. So when you take loan as a business, when you're filing your tax at the end of the year, there are certain interest payments that can reduce your tax liability. That's what that means. Another advantage is that debt financing has predictable repayment pattern. And so with this, you're able to plan, and you can decide to just put some money aside that services that loan while you are planning other part of your revenue or income into continue to build the business. You can also, it's also a very flexible way to build to raise capital, because you are not dictated to, you are not being told by those who've given you this money, unlike VCs, who will tell you where you can put that money. You are free to use this money for whatever you think is right for the business, and the bank will not have, or the lender will not have a problem with that, as long as you are meeting the terms of repayment. So those are the advantages of debt financing. But there is also a downside to raising money or raising funding or capital from debt. Like I said earlier, interest payments could be high. So that's a cost to the business. There's risk of bankruptcy, even if you don't have collateral. If you can't pay the loan that your business has taken, you may have to declare bankruptcy. That means you can get out of business. You can never borrow again. The fixed payment pattern, though it's an advantage, like I said earlier, but it also means you can't really get out of it if your revenue pattern does not follow your plan, your original business plan. That fixed obligation can get you into issues or problems. Of course, the financial flexibility I mentioned earlier is not applicable to every type of business. You can run some type of businesses that there'll be no flexibility with loan, especially when your revenue is not as planned. And then, of course, you have collaterals that you have to use to hedge your loan sometime. When you don't pay, those can be taken away from you, and that could lead to challenges with continuing to run the business. So that's the downside of raising debt to finance your business. Yeah, so several ways to fund business. We talked about non-dilutive, and then we've talked about debt financing. Now we go to the core of what we wanted to talk about today: equity financing. Equity financing involves, the term investment. Getting investors to invest in your business. But let's first understand what investment is. Investment is putting money in your business, or putting resources into your business, but mostly money, with the expectation of getting back returns in the future. Investment is putting money into a business or a project with the expectation of getting returns back in the future. And that could be in form of making sure that capital, the original money you put into the business, is not lost, or it could even increase in value over time, maybe 100%, 200, or even more. So equity financing or equity investment, therefore, is the process through which businesses raise capital by selling shares in their business. So a business or a company effectively sells part of the ownership of the company that owns the business in return for cash. So when an individual, who is an investor, or an entity or a company, which is like an investment fund, puts money in your business, they become a shareholder. That means they now own a portion or a part of your company. So what they own is equity, and equity means ownership. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of raising money, this way? Because you really don't have to get to this level. You really don't have to raise money through equity financing. If you can actually do all of those other things we talked about, like bootstrapping, grants, wage subsidies, and the rest. So, but it has its advantages. You don't pay back, even when the business fails. The investors, they take it that they've lost their money, and there's usually no challenge with that. That's why they are very involved in what you do. That's why they take part control of the business and try to influence how you run the business so that their investment is not lost. In addition to getting cash, most of the funding you get from investors or from equity financing comes with support like expertise and connection to resources that you can use to actually continue to build a business, to make it larger and more profitable. And then as a solo businessman or a co-founder in a startup that has one or two or more founders, you are sharing the risk. So versus you alone trying to bear all of the risk, all of the challenges that come with putting money into a project or a business, you have a lot of people to share the risk with you. So the investors come with this kind of support. They share the risk with you. So when the business fails, God forbid, you are not alone. It's not all of your money that went down. In case you put all of your resources into this, but you have investors that are supporting you in this. The disadvantages of equity financing is that you could lose control of your business. And that also means losing ownership of the business. Because when you sell shares in your company, you have sold out part of the ownership of that company. And that ownership comes with, that sale of ownership comes with sharing control with these external sources of capital. So the investor would want to know how you're running the business. You have to be accountable. You have to, they can sit on your board, they can vote. And when you want to make a very critical decision, you could have investors that say, they want to take a different route from what you are thinking. So that's one of the cons of equity financing. The other one is that there's dilution. Dilution is a term in fundraising that refers to, the reduction of the proceeds that you would get from building and putting all your sweat into this business. So it's not going to be shared with other stakeholders or shareholders in the business. So if you had 100% control or shares in the company, by the time you invite an investor to put money in it, your 100% can reduce to the percentage you sold to investors. So assuming you had full ownership, 100%, and then you sold at 25, you now have 75. And as you gradually bring in more investors, you are gradually getting diluted over time. It will get to a point from 100, you have less than 20 or 20% of the business when you now have a lot of investors that have put money into the business. Now they have taken shares, which equates to control and ownership of the business. The other disadvantage is that there's potential for conflict with these investors. Like I've said earlier, control and ownership comes with the contest for critical decision making in the company or in the business. You have to share decision making with these external sources of capital, and this could lead to conflict. We've seen founders lose out. Either they get fired or they lose control to investors who could also just pull out their investment and thereby truncating the vision of the business. So those are the disadvantages of raising finance from equity investors. So you can weigh this. Where do you want to be? Because you don't really have to be in this part if you can raise capital and build a business over time. It may be slower, but you need to wait for that slow growth to get to where you are. But the idea is that equity finance is normally for businesses that are taking a different route. And so we might want to ask, what type of businesses actually should be looking for equity investment or going on the VC track? These are businesses with very high growth potential, businesses that have scalable opportunity to be around the world, to be global businesses. You're not selling a product or a service that is only limited to the market in Atlantic Canada, not even Canada alone, but you're looking at a business that you can sell in any part of the world. So those are the kind of business that attract equity investment. The business has to be scalable. That meaning very fast growth. You can't wait. The life cycle for startups between 7 and 10, because the investors want to cash out, they want to get a return on their business, on their investment between 7 to 10 years. So you need to be in tune with that kind of speed of growth, to be able to achieve that kind of return for these investors. Businesses that attract equity investment are businesses that are innovative and they are disrupting their environment, their industry, and they are coming up with very innovative technologies that are creating new markets. If they are not disrupting existing ones, they are creating new markets. These markets are usually very huge. So if you are running a business that has very huge market opportunity, that runs into that could run into more than $1 billion over 5 to 7 years, then you'll be attractive to VCs. You have to demonstrate that you have proven market demand. People really are looking for this product across all markets that you have chosen for you to be attractive to VCs. Discretionary spending. That means consumers or your customers are the ones, they are not limited, they are not discouraged from spending, because this product is solving a problem that's very pervasive and urgent for them. So they will prioritize spending on this product over other things. And then you have to demonstrate that your business has potential to lead a market. So it's not a business where you're just one of the players. You have to be able to have a large chunk of the market share for you to achieve the kind of growth and scalability that investors will put their money and really don't care if the business fails and they lose. Because the hook for them is this huge opportunity that you are presenting. So you have to have opportunity. I mean, you have to have the potential to be a market leader to be able to achieve that. And then most importantly, like I said, these investors, they are looking out to cashing out in the future. They are looking out to exit. And when they exit meaning getting back return on their investment after 10 to 15 years, maximum 15, they are not able to get their money back. And there are three ways you could you could get to that situation with investors. It's either the company or the business gets acquired by another company. And so the acquiring company pays multiple times the investment amount that investors put. And so when the proceeds of that sale is gathered, it's shared among all of those who have shares in the business, including the founder. So that's the one way that they exit. Another way they exit is when they merge with other companies that are in complementary business. So the proceeds from that merger, or the fact that that merger, has created a bigger company, gives the investors that joy that they now have a larger chunk of investment, which when there's another exit for that business, they cash out big as well. The last one is merger and acquisition. When they go to IPO, in the investment parlance is when you go to the stock exchange and list the shares of this business that has grown very big. And so you now invite the world, everybody in the world, to come buy a share in the company. So this gives an opportunity to all the existing investors to sell their shares so the public can now buy. And so the pricing of the shares at that stage is led to market forces. And so when that happens, investors cash out big. So this is the kind of business that investors want to invest in. And this is the kind of business that attracts VCs, because you are able to demonstrate that this is a big business. It will get beyond $1 billion in valuation, even hundreds of billions of dollars in valuation. And that can take it to the public market where they can do what they call the initial public offer, or IPO. So what type of investors invest in startups? First, what is an investor? An investor is any person or even a company or an entity organization that puts money in a business with the intention of receiving financial returns that I've described earlier. So that's an investor. And there are two types of investor, generally. You have angel investors, and you have venture capitalists. Angel investors are just individuals. They could also be individuals that have formed a network. So you see, sometimes you hear about angel networks. So angel investors are individuals with lots of money. They are high net worth individuals who can provide funding to startups and entrepreneurs in exchange for a portion of their business or their company. So an angel investor will usually provide funding to very early stage companies that probably are in the idea stage, they are in the what we call the MVP stage. We'll get to that later. So this kind of investment is what these startups need to just start up, to actually start up and to do what we call the seed funding for their business at the very early stage. So these angel investors take the risk because they believe that these small companies would grow bigger or grow big in the future. And when they grow big, because they took the risk with the founders, they will share in the gains that come from the growth of the business. On the other hand, venture capitalists, they operate in form of companies or firms. They also invest in startups and entrepreneurial enterprises that are not, essentially startup, but they are small businesses that are growing. They could also grow big, and so they put money in this business. But unlike angel investors, they don't invest largely in early stage businesses. Rather, they invest in businesses that have started showing signs of growth in terms of users, customers, revenue, market share. So growth stage companies are what venture capitalists would typically invest in. But sometimes they also try to start off early because there are some VC firms that do early stage investing. So we call those, early stage VCs. So how do they invest? How do angel investors and investment firms and VC firms invest? It normally happens in stages. So startups raise their capital in several stages. We'll get to that from pre-seed through seed to Series A to Series C and beyond. But these stages, they are defined by four major descriptives. One is the maturity stage of the business. So seed stage, for instance, which we get to shortly, or pre-seed stage, for instance, is very early stage where it's just an idea. They're just doing customer discovery, trying to understand how they can get feedback from customers to actually now build the product and test it out on them. And then it also depends on the type of investor that play or invest in these stages, as well as the size of the money that is at play when this investment is happening. And of course, what the money or the funding is used for defines this stage. So let's just get into it. These are the stages that startups have to go through to raise capital. You have the pre-seed stage, and then the seed, which are mostly the early stage, where angel investors and a few VCs play. Series A to Series B is when the company or the business or the startup is now growing. And so VCs also play here. And then when it gets to Series C and beyond, you have VCs as well as several other institutional investors that we'll talk about shortly. At this stage, companies are now very big and they require very huge sum of money. So let's look at, do we still have time? Do we still have time? And anyone has any question at this stage?
So we have a couple of questions. We have a question about the venture debt offered so much. So the venture debt is offered to people trying to acquire business where the owner wishes to retire.
Okay, I can see the question now. Sorry, I wasn't looking at the question. So, okay, so the first question, we'll take the questions.
There is two questions there. One is the venture,
okay.
Tanya, and the other one is Erica.
Okay, I'll answer the one from Erica. And I say, what if if family and friend is not an option for fund, what can be the next best option for a startup to obtain funds? Yeah, so as I've mentioned, if you can raise money from yourself or from your family and friends, you can look at grants. You can look at subsidies, you can look at debt. Yeah, and if you're a good startup, you can go around pitching your business in competitions. You can join an accelerator, and it could help you cover some costs like space, internet, you know, maybe common resources that you can share with other startups in an incubator or accelerator space. I don't know if that that answers your question, but basically, if you run out of these options and you have a good idea, you have traction, and you're demonstrating potential for growth, then you should be looking at VC. Because the question to ask yourself is, can I run my business? Can I grow my business? Can I bring my idea alive and grow into a huge business without VC capital, without VC funding? If your answer is yes, then you don't need VC. But if you don't develop the business to a level to attract VC, you have to explore, any of these options. Did I answer your question, Erica?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So the other question was also from Erica. I said, what's R&D in the virtual slide stand for? R&D is research and development. Basically, the kind of activity a startup, a business, or any business does to create new products and services from the scratch. So it involves doing research and using the results from the research to inform new services and products that your company offers to its market. A lot of companies we have around have, R&D department, even consumer products companies like the ones that produce the consumer goods you use at home. That's why you see them coming up with new variants of their products every time. And then for technology companies, they retain developers and scientists that continually test out new ideas, test out consumer feedback, and build new technologies and platform, to keep the market, hooked on their products and services. So that's the meaning of R&D, research and development. Okay, I think it's already been answered. Tanya asked, is venture debt offered to people trying to acquire businesses where the owner wishes to retire? Absolutely no. Venture debt is for very big companies that are really in growth stage. I don't know the kind of business you have that you want to sell to retire, but from what I read, I think you have a sole proprietorship or a business that you own alone, and when you retire, you want the business to continue, but you don't have the time to run it anymore. Venture debt is not for that kind of transaction, but there are loans that you can take to buy a business. I mean, that you can give to somebody who is trying to buy a business. So venture debt is for startups that are selling more than $10 million, and they are trying to raise capital. That's why it's called venture debt. It is for companies that are on the venture path. You already have investors that are pumping money into your business, and you're trying to access more capital through, maybe you are moving from Series A to Series B, and the investor is giving you some conditions on which they would give you additional funding. Maybe expand to America. I haven't covered Canada. And you need additional resources to expand expand services to this new market. So you can take that collateral. The collateral basically is the promise of the investor to invest to the venture debt company like ROBCX, and they advance cash that can help you meet that milestones to access venture debt. Hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank
Oh,
you.
yeah.
Yeah, you also asked if I could elaborate more on the exit opportunities. Exit, as it states, is, you want to, you've invested money in a startup. You've done that over 10 years, and this is there's a time that you want to cash out. Let's also know that a lot of these investors, they lose their money. In fact, if you're going to be an investor, you have to get qualified as an accredited investor. And to be an accredited investor, you have to have an annual earnings or income of about $300,000. And you have to have a net worth or cash that you have or assets that you have aside your annual income of 300K. You have to have a net worth of about 3 million. And when you are investing, you have to give a kind of undertaking that whatever you are investing, it's something you can lose without pain, without challenges. So when you are in that kind of situation, you're putting money in a venture that you could potentially lose. But the only thing that gives you the impetus to do that is because of the upside of it, because it's very risky, you could lose. But if you win, it's going to be huge. So you are always waiting for that day when that winning will come. And that winning time is the exit time. And that exit comes in three forms. The company gets acquired, the company merges with another company, or the company lists its shares in the stock exchange. If you know what they do at the stock exchange, they buy and sell shares. And that the price of that share, of the shares are determined by market forces. So when there are a lot of people rushing the shares of Google or the shares of Meta, owners of Facebook, the price goes up. And so if you bought your share at a small price, maybe $50 per share, there's a time it could get to $100 per share and you've made 100% gain. So that's where these guys cash out and get an exit. Hope I've been able to answer the question clearly now. All right. So we're going to talk about the different stages of fundraising on the VC side. But as we go ahead, I want to ask this question again. I hope we have founders in-house who are on the VC path, who are actually building a potentially scalable product or service or platform, and they're looking at doing this one day. It would be nice for us to talk, and please reach out to me if you are in that kind of business. But if you are a small business, like I said, all the 7 or 8 sources of capital we discussed earlier is where you should be. And we can also talk about that if you have challenges with those. Like I said, I will share some resources later that can give you access to those opportunities for funding that are not directly related to VC funding that we are talking about right now. But today I was asked to talk about equity financing. That's why we're going to be dealing more on VC financing today. So the pre-seed stage of fund is usually the first time a startup or a founder, an entrepreneur, tries to get money from outsiders. And sometimes that family and friend can come to this, can be this round, because you can have some friends and family that are not ready to give you the money free or interest-free. They are saying, I'm giving you this money. If you succeed, you're going to give me a share of the business. But the investors that really play at this round or at this stage are called angel investors. And like I said, there are those high net worth people or individuals who have enough money to invest and they can afford to lose it if the business goes under. When you are trying to raise seed capital or pre-seed capital, you are in what we call the MVP stage. MVP is the minimum viable product stage, where you have created a prototype of your product or platform, and you've not started selling, but you've built something that looks like, that has all the basic features of what the final product will be like. And you can use this prototype to gather your customers' feedback so that you can improve on it. The typical amount that is invested at this stage, it could start from 50 in some cases, but averagely 100 to 1 million, depending on the kind of market you are playing in, because different types of sectors require different intensity of capital. And the investors that play at this stage are family and friends, angel investors, and some specific VC funds that they tell you they want to start early so that, they don't just start seeing, they don't lose opportunities at this stage. And then the aim at this stage, what the startup is doing at this stage is really, they are trying to raise money, to go full time. Maybe it's just a solo founder who's been doing this part time and he wants to go full time, but he needs capital so that this thing can move faster. And he could use the money to build the product itself and start generating users who are actually testing it out. You could also use it for marketing research and employing a few people to join his team to be able to build that proof of concept. The next stage is the seed stage. And at that seed stage, your MVP or is an earlier version of your product is ready. You've already started having users that you built it for, using it, and these users, they're already giving you feedback and helping you to really have a sense of whether this product you've designed is actually solving the problem that you identified at the beginning. And if you are an enterprise, a B2B company, that's not exactly selling to consumers, you probably will have like 5 to 10 customers who are also using the product, and giving you feedback. And the amount of money that you could raise around this time is between $500,000 and $3 million. And the investors that play at this stage are, some angel investors and VCs. You have different type of VCs. There are VCs that will tell you they do pre-seed and seed. And there are some VCs that will tell you they don't do seed at all. They come in after they started seeing evidence of progress and growth. But VCs also play in this stage, and those are what we call the seed stage VCs. And the work at this stage, that the team is doing or the startup is doing is actually building traction or, building growth in terms of number of users, the engagement level of those users, the retention, the user retention, and a little bit of early customers that are trying the product and trying to see if they could pay. And you probably also, making an average around $10,000 a month already. The money you get at this stage, they expect you to use for improving the product, for actually selling and marketing and getting new customers. And you can also apply to recruiting new members into the team to help you continue to build and grow the business. At this stage, you can have a marketing person, a salesperson, in addition to the earlier people you added that could have been developers. After seed, it's supposed to be Series A. But there are sometimes you are not qualified yet. You don't have all of the things in place to prove to investors who play at that stage. So it's called, the seed plus stage or the post-seed stage. And it's an area between seed and Series A where you cannot prove that you've actually made the progress that they expect. And it's an opportunity for you to raise some what I call stopgap or bridge funding to help you meet those milestones that the big VCs are asking you to meet before they do Series A with you, which is bigger amount of money. You already can show evidence of user growth. The engagement is growing significantly, and you can keep, there's a stickiness to you keeping your customers in your platform. And then they can also give you certain revenue targets that you need to meet. For instance, a VC can tell you that we want to see you already doing a recurring monthly revenue of 200K, 300K, or even $1 million, depending on your market or your sector, before they can talk to you. So you will need to raise a small fund or a bridge fund to be able to push all of this, because a lot of these activities cost money and you need to raise that kind of money. At this stage, you are still at MVP stage, but your product has witnessed a lot of improvement, and you are changing a lot of things rapidly in the platform or in the product or in the service because users are giving you feedback, and so you are now improving it. You could raise between 1 million to 5 million at this stage. You could be, this is really an extension of this, could be an extension of a seed round with previous investors or separate rounds. So this could be, the investors that play here could be investors that have invested in your company during the seed stage, or, it's just new ones that you've not been dealing with, you just bring them afresh. But if the existing investors are still in your cap table or in your list of shareholding, the new ones just join. And what you use money for at this stage range from building market traction to expanding the market and showing traction. And you should be at a revenue range of $100,000 a month to be really attractive, to be really prepared to move to that next stage, which is the Series A stage. So Series A occurs when the business has achieved what we call product market fit. That means you can now prove that your product is really meeting the desire of the market you envisage at the beginning. And this is demonstrated by people now willing to pay for it, and they are now actually paying. And the rate at which they are paying is growing. So your revenue is witnessing growth every month. Your market share is also growing, and the number of customers you have, of course, is growing for you to be able to be having growth in revenue. You raise much more amount in this round or at this stage than you raise in Series A, significantly more, between 5 and 10 million. And again, it depends on this is not fast and hard. A fast and hard rule. There are companies that will raise the 100 million at this stage, so it's just averagely 10 million. And the investors that play at this stage are VCs, or also what we call family office. Family offices are very rich families or rich individuals. They have so much money, and they don't just want to keep that money in the bank to be yielding 5-10%, less than 10% interest, and they want it to yield more. So instead of keeping this money kind of idle, they find investors who manage what they call family office, so that this wealth can be managed so that they can build generational wealth. Those are what family offices are. You can also have corporate venture funds participating in this round. Corporate venture funds are big companies selling their products and their traditional services, but they set up different divisions that are like VCs, so they can invest in smaller companies that play in their field, so they can acquire them later. For instance, Visa, the card company, last year, they set up what they call the Visa, or what they call Visa Ventures. So Visa Venture invests in very early stage startups that are playing in the payment, commerce, and fintech space. So these are companies that are complementary to the service they sell as Visa. So they play in that field. So that's what corporate venture funds do. And then when you are doing this round, you have what they call a lead investor, which is a main investor that drops a significant part of the round. If it is 10 million you are raising, this investor will probably have put 5 million down. So you have to have other investors that are adding, in other bids, in several other bids to make up the remaining 50 or whatever percentage that the lead investor has dropped down. So those are the investors, the type of investors that invest in at the Series A stage. At this stage, you are expected as a startup to have be generating revenue in excess of in millions, really, because at this stage, a lot of money is at play, and they're expecting you to show that this is a repeatable, scalable, fast-growing company that in a few years, in less than 5 years, they can have their exit and get maximum return on their investment. The funding here is used for really scaling, as in building new features, new products, improving the existing ones so that it can attract more customers, expanding to other market geographies, either within a country or across the globe, bringing in new products, and also increasing your employees, because at this stage, as you're growing in numbers, you're growing in the market in terms of users, customers, you need more members in your team to do all of the work, as you go from region to region. So, and then you come up to Series B. I should measure that. Why is this happening? See, it's happening because fundraising for a startup or for a tech startup is like it's like car racing. So at every stop or at every checkpoint, you need to take fuel, because you are burning money at every stage. You take money at this stage, you use that money, to build the product, to get more customers. You get to Series A, you are running out of that money, or what they call runway. Your runway is ended. So you stop at the checkpoint to take more fuel. This time, take more money so that you can begin to build other things that you need to build to get to the next stage. For instance, expanding to new market where you need new team members, where you need new equipment, where you need new products that fit or match the needs of those markets you are trying to expand to. So it's in stages because you need to do everything at a step, and you need to grow over time and demonstrate that you can get to the next stage before this guy pour all their money into the business, because it's risky. So at Series B stage, typically the company has achieved very strong growth, very significant growth. And there's no doubt now that it's not just growth they are having, they're also very profitable. And that profitability really makes sense in terms of, when you express that over revenue, it grows over year. So at this stage, the company also has a very large customer base. You have now truly proven, there's no doubt about how you get more customers. You are not testing anymore. You know how to repeatedly grow your customer base. And your management and leadership team is now very solid. You have all the people in place, and investors can have trust in them that they are really leading a good company. And 1 year over the other, you can have 100% growth in in customers, in market share, or even in revenue. And this round, the investors that put money down here are still VCs. And you now have institutional investors like the corporate venture companies I mentioned earlier. You have other institutional investors that are global corporations that they are trying to turn around their stash of wealth, so it can make more money for them. And it could also involve strategic investors who are kind of, aligned with the kind of industry you are in, and they invest in this business. Funding here can range from 10 to 25 million. It could be more. It could be drawn into hundreds of millions, depending on the industry you are in. And the money here is for further growing the business, investing in R&D that results in new products, new technologies that protects the business from competitors. And of course, you can use funding here to build and increase and improve on team. Then you have Series C. It can go on and on. Series C, Series D, Series E, F. It happens if you continue to raise money. You're not ready for exit yet. Some companies can move straight from Series B and they exit. They get acquired. They get to merge with other companies and the investors cash out. But you can wait. You're still building. There's a lot of potential. You need a lot of fuel to get to that stage. And you can do Series C, D, E. So at this stage, the company is now leading in its category or in its sector. And you are generating revenue in hundreds of millions. You're not actually, like I said, working towards giving returns to the investor who have been with you for these 7 to 10 years. You have achieved significant traction. Have established a clear market position, and you plan to continue to scale your operation until you get to that exit. And the investors that invest here are still VC firms, private equity firms, hedge funds. There are several types of funds that come to play at this stage at very high level. They will, of course, include your existing investors who have stake in the business, but the capacity to invest more has not gone beyond their limit. So they need bigger funding. This is where all the big global companies, like Airbnb, Facebook will play. Funding amount, like I said, could be in excess of 100 million sometimes, because you need this money to do further expansion. You can even at this stage acquire other companies as you prepare to build more value into the business so that it can be really attractive for IPO. Because IPO means you're going to invite the public to come and buy shares in this company. This share has now been priced very high. So if you don't show proof that this company is valuable and it can continue to deliver value and higher returns on those retail investors that you're going to sell to, it will not fly. So that's why you need to use funding here to acquire other businesses so that you can be big, and you could expand, to all parts of the world. So the process is really, is a long and tortuous one. But how do you even get into the train in the first place? This is what this slide is all about. How do you get into the train? How do you get into the fundraising process from that beginning? It takes planning and preparation. You need to really connect with the investors and reach out to them. And when they connect with you, you do your pitch, they give you feedback, they like what you've presented, they think you have demonstrated that this business is investable. They do due diligence on you, as in checking out all your claims. You see what they do at Dragon's Den. Everybody comes on stage, pitches. Before the money promised at that stage is given out or deposited in the company's account, founders have to subject themselves to due diligence. They have to show proof, that the company can do all they said they would do, or have done what, or has done what they said on stage there that they have done. And when that is proven, you come into negotiation. There's a term sheet, which is like a pre-contract. It's not exactly a contract, but it's the terms on which they will buy a company, what amount, what valuation, and how much shares you're going to give out, what kind of control they will take, when they join you as owners of the business. And then, of course, when you do agree to all those terms, you close and you are funded, money hits your account. Doesn't end there. You're now in bed with investors. You are not sharing ownership or control of your business with outside investors. So you do not need to do certain things to keep this relationship going. You have to be reporting. So we get into that in a minute. So let's look through all of those things we just mentioned. Do we still have time, Julia?
We are running out of time. We are 8:04.
We are running out of time?
Yes, 8:07. If you have a lot still to go.
No, not much. We'll go through in a short
Good.
while. Yeah, fundraising is, that's why I wanted to cut off the non-dilutive. So first, if you're going to raise capital, in the VC market, you have to decide what you want to use the fund for. It starts from knowing what you want to use the fund for, because you can go up to the stage and say you want to, but you'll be questioned and you can fall apart if you don't. So you can decide. So what you need to do is to do a business plan and also do a financial plan that tells you what you need to bring your vision alive. And so when you do that, you can, it can help you decide what you really need by setting the valuation of your company. How much do you want to value the company, which can be done by several ways. How much revenue are you projecting? What's the kind of competitive environment you are playing in? What kind of experience and expertise are your founders bringing to the business? So you can use that to set valuation. And then you need to decide what kind of investors do you want. There are different investors, like I told you earlier. They operate at different stages. Do you want an early stage investor? If you're at an early stage as a business, you'll be looking for early stage investors, not the one who play at Series A. You have to find out what sector they are playing in. Are they playing food tech? Are they playing health tech? Are they playing fintech? What's their check size? How much do they traditionally invest? 50, 100, so that it matches with your needs. And where are they based? Some investors tell you they only invest in Canada. Some tell you they only invest in Nova Scotian companies. And are they ready to put the significant amount down, or they will just join a lead investor and make up the money you need? And so once you have done this, you can create a list of these criteria, and then you can begin to build a list of investors that you can tick them off. So you have a list of investors you want to talk to. So you begin to reach out to those investors through various means. But first, there is a place where you can find investors. If you ask the question, how do I find investors? There are some platforms where you can find them. Crunchbase is one, PitchBook, Visible, and AngelList. You can just check on these platforms, and investors there, they are also looking out for investment because they have the cash. They're looking for investment to put money into. You can find some investors. You go to their website and you find the companies that they have already invested in. So you can reach out to those founders and ask for introduction. If you have advisors like we do in Volta or at Tribe, you can ask them if they have a relationship with any investor they could tell you about. And of course, you can go to events, conferences, and ecosystem events where you can meet these investors. Of course, if you know a founder who has raised, you can reach out to find out who he raised from. And of course, don't forget LinkedIn and Google. You could get investors there. Once you have identified these investors and you've created a list, you need to now manage how you talk to them. You create a list somewhere that you can be using to manage who you have talked to, who has responded, who has given feedback, what's the next step, and what has he committed. And then there's a time for reaching to investors. There are times when they are on holidays. You need to know the time when to reach out to investors. Christmas time is not that time. And the best time we come to learn is during spring and at fall, between September and November. They are at work. And between February and April or May, they are also a little bit. Somehow you expect that they are flying around the world on holiday, so you're not going to reach them. And so there are two ways to reach investors. Once you have been introduced, or once you have itemized or listed those investors, you now have their names, their details of contact. You can either send a cold email, which is just crafting a mail or going to LinkedIn and sending an email and introduce yourself. But that's hard because there's a large failure rate for cold email. That's why you need to have a style to it. You need to find a common ground where, for instance, you've heard or read about the investor mentioning somewhere that they just raised fund and they are now about to invest. You can just write a mail and say, congratulations on your recent funding. And we are so kind of startup, and we think we are a fit for your fund that you just raised. So find common grounds, that can open your cold email. But if you can't do cold email, or you have the opportunity of being introduced by somebody who has a relationship with these investors, then a warm email is always good. Investors want to be introduced to founders by people they already know. So there's a large success rate attached to that. When you do get to connect with the investor, you need to have before then, you need to have your elevator pitch ready. Elevator pitch is, if you are not going to have a long meeting with a client, with an investor, they may just ask you the first time, tell me about your business. You need to be prepared for that. So you need to be able to explain your business, your product, your idea, your startup in 60 seconds. That's what an elevator pitch is. Like, you run into an investor in an elevator and he says, tell me about your business. And you have that time before the door opens to just tell him. All right. And so that's what an elevator pitch does. Prepare your pitch materials before the meeting, before going to pitch to the investor. So pitching materials mainly is your pitch deck that tells an investor about the problem, the solution you are developing, the product you serve, the market opportunity in it, the vision you have around the growth, and of course your team. Why are you the one to do this? Do you have expertise in this area or experience in this area you are trying to go into? So those are the things your pitch should explain very succinctly. And then you begin to schedule the meetings after preparation, and then you remember to customize your pitch to different investors, because you can't send same to all of them. They have different nuances. They have, if you go to their website, they tell you what really moves them. So you need to know those things and let your pitch resonate with those things. So always remember that you need to show traction. Traction meaning you need to demonstrate the progress you have made so far in the. You need to demonstrate that you made some progress in your business that kind of shows the vision of where you're going in your pitch. So you go there, you pitch, and then when you finish pitching, don't forget to ask questions, like what kind of business do you invest in? What have I missed? What do you think we need to do as a business to really get these? And then remember to follow up, after. So after the pitch, you have what they call the due diligence, like I said earlier. And the investor is really saying yes to you. there are a lot of things you can do after. But there are cases where the investor will tell you, sorry, we don't think we can invest in your business. You are not at that stage yet. We don't think you have your business fits with the way we invest, or just any reason. So it's up to you to ask for feedback to say, how could we have done better? Why are you not investing in us? What is missing in our pitch or in our proposition? If they don't give you a feedback, you can ask other investors. For instance, you get a new investor, you try to ask questions directly that give you a sense of what you have missed in the former pitch you did. And so this investor can give you straight answers around, just be open about what is missing from our pitch. Why would you not invest in us? So, so beyond just asking other investors, you can actually ask the investor directly, pointedly, to say, what did we miss? Why are you not investing in us? That's if the investor tells you no. But if he says yes, then you have to start preparing for due diligence. Due diligence basically is organizing all of the documentation and evidence you have, all of the evidence you need to back up all the things you've shared in your pitch that you say you can do, that you're capable of doing. You need to organize them into what they call a data room. That data room is a virtual space, like a folder online that you can use, Google folder or Google Doc or some other platform or CRM platform that you can use to store all of the documents. That you don't need to be emailing it one by one to the investor. So you just give the investor a link. He opens that folder and he sees all of those things there. And then it comes to closing. And in closing, you have to have all of the final documents that you need. For instance, your certificate of incorporation, the bylaws guiding your company, the consent of your directors and the minutes of boards of directors, your stock purchaser or shareholders agreement. If you have what they call the option plan or the stock option plan, which is shareholdings that you keep in store for your employees so they can be dedicated, they can get incentive to continue to work with you. Investors want that. They want you to dedicate between 10 to 20% of your shares for current and future staff so that you can guarantee their loyalty and their longevity in the business. And then if you have a valuation report, you need to have it ready. A capitalization table or cap table is a breakdown of who currently are investors in your company, because the new investor wants to know who have ownership in the company already. It's a very tricky issue. You need to identify all the people who already have shares in your business. And of course, you need to prove that your business, your idea is protected. It's not something that other companies, competitors can come and they replicate what you have done, and you no longer have a business. So you need to show proof that you have proprietary protection like patent, trademark, and the rest. So when you have received the funding, you need to continue to communicate with the investor. You need to have what we call the investor update, which you send regularly, could be monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly, where you tell the investors who are now part owners of the company what is happening in the company, what you are using the money for, how you're getting results in terms of sales, user growth, revenue, employee growth, or even employee leaving and resigning. You need to be reporting that in updates. This can come in form of just regular updates, or you create a company newsletter that you send to these stakeholders that are not part of your business. And of course, make sure you are filing your tax, you're filing all the necessary and statutory reporting that you have to do as a company registered and play in any jurisdiction, Nova Scotia or Canada. And then most importantly, ensure that everything you have put in your pitch, in your plans, in your projections to your investors, that you are now actually galvanizing your team and all the resources you have to execute those plans. So those are the things that happen, once you've gotten the funding. So just in conclusion, take away from today, I would advise that you check all available sources of funding before deciding which one is good for your business. So fundraising is not It's not one style fits all kind of thing. So it could be that you need just non-dilutive funding to grow. You don't need VC. And it could be that you cannot grow because the opportunity is so large that you need huge or more money, so you need VC. So decide, just explore all the opportunities before you take a decision. Don't just equate building a business with raising capital from outside. Make sure your pitch is always compelling, always engaging, and it resonates with the investor. Leverage mentors, advisors, organizations like Volta and Tribe, so you can meet, you can assess opportunities and guidance and connection that helps you build a business. And then before you decide, when you decide to go VC, make sure you do a lot of research, like I've said, to know the type of investors that look at the kind of person you are or the kind of business you are investing. So you don't waste time. And then always be ready to demonstrate that you have done some things and you are on the verge of doing some things that prove that this is a business that will give huge returns to the investors. So if we still have questions, we can talk about those at this point in time. Thank you.
It seems at this moment we don't have any questions to finalize.
So how much time did we spend here?
It's 8:22, so we almost went to the 2 hours.
Oh my God.
It's a good measurement. But I want to
Oh
remind
my
everybody,
God.
and I'm sharing in our chat, that you don't have to navigate all of this by yourself. That there is support in the community, the support through Volta, the support to Thrive, that you can ask questions as well. You can explore what other options you have. So as much as this gives a picture of what all the options are out there, you don't have to choose by yourself. There is always someone within the community, with the ecosystem, that will be happy to sit down with you and see what options make more sense for you. And with that in mind, I am sharing in the chat our information for Katerina and for myself, if you're looking for having a discussion and seeing what is your next steps. As well, I'm sharing the information about our feedback form to know what is the next things that you would like to learn or where you want to explore. And for our future workshop, as Dan was mentioned, we're going to have a grant session coming up, which is one of the easiest way to get some for funding. We have a question in the chat, I think. So, Erica, you had a question?
I have a question. Are we gonna get the slides or recording of this seminar?
Yes. So we will
you can
send
get a
this.
slide, yeah.
Yeah, we will send the slide as well. Dan mentioned a document where it has all the sources that he was mentioned. As well, we will put the recording in the Thrive platform, accessible with all the other recorders for financial. They will be complete, all of them. So I put the community Thrive network access, like it's free, so you can access there. There is multiple courses that we already have, and we will put all the information of the financial. And I want to thank you, all of you, to stay until the end, and thank you for your support. And thank you, Dan, so much for the help and so much for the knowledge, because this is a lot to navigate, and it's really nice to have someone that put it in context for us.
I just hope that we had people amongst us who are on that track, VC track. I can see Gwendolyn, who is an investor, really. Thanks for joining us, Gwendolyn. Okay.
Thank you so much, everybody, and have a good night.
Good night.
Look forward to see you in the next sessions.